Welcome back, guys. We're doing another little walkthrough here. I've got an awesome one for you on engineering career growth analysis. So this is a follow-up to my kind of secret to a six-figure engineering career working in robotics, just based on my background and having been in the industry for a while and understanding business, working in large companies, working at startups, starting my own company, and just trying to put together a framework to make good decisions. And this is what I've been doing with my clients in the mentorship program. And I wanted to follow up here with another whiteboard. This is a digital whiteboard this time with a little bit more context, all right? I know we talked a lot about money, market, industry, and the academics in the last video. In this video, what I want to do is talk about more of like the principles and the relationships to give you some real world examples of how I'm seeing this. And this is just my holistic observation. And unfortunately, when I was in engineering school, I didn't learn any of this. This has literally just been like the last 15 plus years of just trying to put together like what constitutes success, who's winning in engineering, and how are they advancing their careers. And it generally comes down to the principles of these four categories and their relationship. Okay, so money, we're just talking about like how much money can you make, like what is that ceiling cap market, like what industry or sector are you in. So are you in the actual like what I call industry, like are you working for a company, or are you working for like a lab? Are you in research? There's another video that I have on my channel that's about research versus industrial as it relates to robotics. I'll leave a link here. There's a little banner that's going to pop up. You can check that out. Like, what's the difference between research and industrial robots? And that's kind of how I like to think about it. There are lots of layers to this and like multiple dimensions of this. So just keep that in mind as we're talking through this. I'll do my best to give you some definitions here. But as it relates to money, market, academics, industry, so market is going to be kind of like the sector that you're in. And we talked a little bit about market-based wages. So what will that market or what will that sector pay? Like what is the economy of the kind of industry or where you are in the market? What is the common value of what people are willing to pay for that? So I'm just going to put economics here. And there are, in the previous video, I was talking a little bit about like optimization. So market, responsibilities, and environment. So this goes back to like my concept of market-based wages. And I gave this example where like if let's say you're a brain surgeon and you make $500,000 a year. So market-based wages. So let's go back to that example that I was briefly talking about. Let's say you are a surgeon and you are working on brains. So you're a brain surgeon, you make $500K a year. Well, if you decide as a brain surgeon that you no longer want to do surgery and you want to become a bagger at a grocery store like Publix, you can't expect to take your $500,000 salary with you as a bagger at Publix. Why? Because of market-based wages, right? The market doesn't care who you are as a person. It cares about what skills you are bringing and what responsibilities, the role that you have, what those skills are worth. So the same is true for, let's say, cars. So here's another example. There are people that are willing to shell out $100,000 or more for the brand new 2024 Corvette convertible Stingray, right? So the 2024 Corvette convertible Stingray, people are happy to spend over $100,000 to get their hands on one if they're a Corvette fan. And I've considered it. It's one of my favorite cars right now. But they're also, that same person, if they are looking at a Toyota Corolla, and let's say the car dealer said it's going to be $100,000 for the Toyota Corolla, they're going to be upset. Why? Because of market-based wages. What you bring to the table dictates how much you're going to get paid for it. So you can't expect, going back to the brain surgeon example, you can't expect as a brain surgeon, even if you are making $500,000 a year, if you do something different, meaning you decide you want to become a bagger at Publix, which I know is an insane example, but I just am trying to make the point. Like, if you expect to take your surgery, your brain surgeon, quote unquote, talent and deploy it in a different sector, you can't expect to keep your earnings. You have to understand that there's a ceiling in the market-based wages that says what is reasonable, what is a reasonable price for the responsibilities of that role, okay? So based on what you're responsible for, that is what you're going to get paid on. It's never based on you as a person, okay? And this is just my observation, like from hiring my own team and being in the industry and growing businesses and understanding a little bit more holistically how all these different things piece together. Let's tie this into engineering. So like if you choose, a market, let's say you want to be in aerospace, and let's say that you are a mechanical engineer and you've formally trained, you have a bachelor's degree. So you have the academic background, you're ready to go, you have that baseline skill, you want to work in aerospace, but you are only hired to do let's say engine assembly. And I'm speaking from experience. We used to work in engine centers, and I know what this kind of role is. So engine assembly. So like let's say that you're in aerospace, you're working in engine assembly, and you're a technician. Even though you have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, because you're only responsible for the technician side, like the assembly of the engine, you can't expect to make the same as the mechanical engineer who owns the drawings of this. You can't expect that, right? Because you get paid for the responsibilities that you have for that role based on the market that you're in. Now, what I can say is, depending on what market you're in, you can actually take your same exact skill set and you can move it into a different market, and you can potentially make more without any more degrees. So this is where things get kind of interesting. What you can do is, let's just say you want to keep the responsibilities constant, meaning you're still a technician, but instead of working in aerospace, let's say at a Fortune 50 company that's maybe more of a corporate environment, if you moved your career into a startup doing, let's say, robot assemblies, they've got this new like robot technology, and they just raised, $25 million in VC funding, and they need somebody that can come in and do assembly. Depending on where they're at, and they have the funding, you may actually make more money doing the exact same thing because the market is different. And let's go ahead and actually add in the third optimization piece, is the environment. So let's go back to aerospace. You're a technician for an aerospace company, you're doing engine assembly. You could lock aerospace and you could lock engine assembly, but if you are in, let's say, Connecticut, and you're doing engine assembly in Connecticut versus engine assembly in Arkansas, then you can literally change your income purely based on how expensive the cost of living is in that environment. So your geography and your location is going to dictate your income. So if you're if you're a technician in aerospace and you work in Connecticut, odds are you're probably going to make more money than if you're an engine assembly person working in aerospace in Arkansas. You're going to make less money. That's just my intuitive guess. I've never actually lived in Arkansas, but I know that like countries or like country or like suburbia is going to make less than, metropolitan. Like if you're in, Hartford, Connecticut, then that's going to be more expensive than, let's say some countryside in Arkansas, or even like a facility that I worked at in Georgia. They were outside of a military base, so a little bit more country. You're going to make less than if you were working in that city environment. So there's lots of variables at play here. And when I'm working with people in the mentorship program, we're trying to figure out, okay, what is the balance? Like, what is your mix Because if you can understand what the mix is, almost like a portfolio mix, like if you do any sort of investing, you kind of want to diversify. Well, instead of diversifying, you want to optimize for the market, the responsibilities, and the environment. And so as a technician, if you want to leverage your skill set and your experience working in aerospace as a technician, a way to make more money is to choose an environment that pays more. Another option could be to choose a company that values your skill set and might be more modern. So if you choose a startup, let's say, that needs a technician and you have that skill set, you don't need any more degrees because you already have the background and the experience. Perhaps the new location is now in Santa Clara. And I know there's a lot of companies in Santa Clara that meet this requirement. Then inherently you can grow your career purely just based on this. Now, this is not factoring cost of living because everybody has a different lifestyle, but intuitively, you pick a strong market, you pick responsibilities that are highly valued, and you choose an environment where they're already paying lots of money, like the Silicon Valleys, the New York Cities, the Miamis, like the locations that generally have a lot of money moving through them. That is going to help you make more money without needing any more degrees. Now, the other tweak you could make is you can tweak your responsibilities. So let's say you don't want to do assembly. You're not doing assembly. You have that mechanical background, but instead of doing assembly, you're now in charge of the, let's say, blade designs. Okay, so now you're working in blades designs. You're still in aerospace, you're doing blade design, but now you're on the engineering team. And on the engineering team, you're definitely going to see an increase in your earning potentials because those responsibilities are worth more, right? You have to have more talent and you have to have more skill in order to be responsible for the design and the drawings. And so you could keep your location the same, and you can stay inside the same market, but if you choose a responsibility that is worth more, then you'll make more money. Again, without needing another degree, because we're finding what we have. We're using our background and trying to optimize for earning potential, okay? Now, you may say, like, okay, Liz, that's awesome. It sounds cool and everything. It sounds maybe too good to be true. And the answer is it's really just that simple. Engineers try to overcomplicate things and make things more confusing than they need to be. And it really is just that. Choose a market that is a strong market where money is being spent, where you're getting paid for responsibilities or skill sets that companies are hiring for at a premium, in an environment that has that has a higher population. It's more dense geographically, like a larger city, and you will make more money without needing to do anything different. Like, you're still the same person. So I've talked to a lot of clients where they're like, oh, I'm just going to keep going back and getting more degrees. And it's like, well, have you maxed out these three variables? Do you know what market you're in? Do you know the limitations of the market that you're in? What are your current responsibilities? And where do you currently live? All right. And so there are some trade-offs here. You have to understand yourself. And so there's a video I put together called The Action Plan. I'm going to leave a little card here. You can click on that and build yours if you'd like. But there are trade-offs you have to make, right? So once you have kind of the idea of like your perfect optimization balance, you're going to have to put in reality, right? We have to account for life, and lifestyle trade-offs. You have to know, what are you maximizing for? Are you maximizing for money? Are you maximizing for your family? Or are you maximizing for your interests? So interests could be like hobbies. It could be like flexibility. It could be work-life balance. It could be any number of things that fall into things that you personally care about. Family should be pretty obvious. Family, friends, your spouse, your kids. Like, what is important to you at what stage in your life? And there's really no right or wrong answer. It's just you need to know what you're prioritizing. So usually what I will do with clients is we need to figure out, okay, well, are you in a stage of life where you need to maximize your money? So this is like the number one goal. because if you can define that ahead of time, then you'll be able to make good decisions. Like, you'll have this decision making criteria. And if the goal is I'm doing things based on how much money I can make, that's totally different than I'm doing things based on how flexible my hours are, right? Because you have to do some trade-offs. You can't expect to work 0 hours and make the most money in this environment, right? And so what I recommend doing is numbering these, like what is the priority? You want to prioritize which of these are like the order. So you want to number them 1 through 3. So maybe you're in this time of life where you are, just yourself. You're the only person you're responsible for. So you're going to optimize for money, interest, and then you don't have a family or anything like that. So that's not as important to you. Okay. I've also had clients where family is their number one thing, and they need the money to support their family, and then whatever time they have to do other things, that's kind of what their prioritization looks like. Now, I'm not saying prioritize means you can't have all three things. You're just going to need to have an understanding of what is more important, what is the order in which I'm prioritizing my lifestyle, so that we can make good decisions. And this can change, like I said, based on the season of life that you're in. The goal of this is to figure out what are you maximizing for, so that you have a good decision-making framework. All right, and so the next area that I wanted to kind of walk you through and show you kind of some real-world examples of this is my economic slider example. And this is, again, these are my opinions. I'm not affiliated with any of these companies. This is just how I'm seeing things through the lens of myself and my career, and just doing a lot of reflecting on why certain people advance super fast, why some of my clients advance super fast. And a lot of times it comes down to what we just talked about. It really comes down to optimizing for the market and responsibilities, understanding your lifestyle trade-offs, and then knowing this slider, okay? So in the previous whiteboard training on my secret to a six-figure engineering career, I revealed this concept right here on a one-dimensional scale. So I revealed that the more tactical you are, the less money you're going to make. The more strategic you are, the more money you're going to make. So there's this relationship between tactics and strategies. So if you're strategic, you're going to make more money. If you're tactical, then you're going to make less money. And so some examples of tactical, we'll use our technician versus engineer. So we've got the technician is going to be more tactical. And so when I say the word tactical, what I mean is you are like hands-on tightening bolts. So you're the one climbing on equipment, you're the one fixing things, you're the one doing repairs. A lot of times, kind of like the blue collar jobs, like union jobs, they'll be they'll trend more towards the tactical side, because this is the workforce, like the classic workforce. And as we're going through this, by the way, as a quick aside, this is not good or bad. I'm just stating kind of how I see things and how I visualize holistically markets and how I visualize career growth. So you can do kind of what you want with this information. You can challenge me. I'm open to comments in the comment section below, so feel free to comment your opinion. But this is just kind of how I've been visualizing things and developing frameworks and principles around it, so that it's less of a mystery on how to advance your career and just more of a process, right? More of a decision-making framework. So we've got, let me just erase this. So we've got the tactical side, which is technical, which is definitely more hands-on. So tightening bolts, maybe more blue collar. I'll also put in here like hourly. So hourly workforce is generally going to be more tactical. So there's lots of examples. We're going to talk about kind of the second dimension that branches up the y-axis here in a few seconds, but hourly. And then on the strategic side, you've got kind of it's maybe less technical. So we'll just put like non-technical, and I'm even going to put like business. This tends to be technical, like engineering. And then we've got kind of like what I'll call like leadership and vision, and just generally white collar. And it's also tends to be kind of more salary. It's like a salaried role, or there's like ownership involved. So this is where kind of like equity and like stocks and like owner operator. So ownership. And then you've got what I was going to say over here. You've got kind of like, you're trending more towards like computers and technology. And over here, you're trending more towards doing things with your hands. So it's more like manual labor. And there's, like I said, there's dimensions to this. So that's why I wanted to come back on here and provide kind of some additional ideas to this model that I've been building out. So manual labor. Okay, and there's degrees to this too. This is it's a gradient. It's not just like a black or white thing. It's a blend. And what I wanted to do now is just introduce you to this concept of this second dimension. And what I've done is I've put in this market side, which is based on the Maslow hierarchy of needs, but it's flipped upside down. So if you've never seen this, there's this like philosophy or common principle about like needs, like psychologically, like human needs. And it basically breaks down to the psychological needs are food, water, warmth, and rest. Safety needs, security, safety, belongingness, esteem, self-actualization, so self-fulfillment. And this base of the pyramid is like you need these things first, right? So you need to have all your basic needs met before you go and you try to, make things better, right? Like if you don't have, let's say, water, food, shelter, then that's going to be your first thing that you need to take care of. Let's say before you go and wait in line for the latest Nikes, like you're going to take care of needs in kind of this order. And so the reason why I kind of like this model and why I think this might make sense for our second dimension is because you have all these different companies. I've put some logos up here that I'm sure you're familiar with. You have companies that serve these categories. So I've just made it very simple here. We've got kind of 3 sections. You've got your basic needs, so companies that serve your basic needs, like FPL, which down here in Florida, that's our power and utility company. So obviously, if you don't have power or utilities, like that's a basic need. You need that. You've got Xfinity, which is like communication, phones, TV, that kind of stuff, internet. And you've got Starbucks here, which is food, psychological needs. You've got maybe more like this is like prestige and feeling of accomplishment. So I put Tesla right in here because like obviously basic needs, there are other types of cars or there's other modes of transportation that isn't a Tesla. And then we've got kind of Airbnb and Zoox, which is like the self-driving vehicle company, which is like more aspirational. So this is kind of how I see things. Like you've got companies that are serving the market, and you've got categories, and this is very simplified. So you've got the basic needs category, psychological needs category, and then aspirational needs category. And it's drawn like this upside down because like technically the market doesn't need a self-driving car, right? That's aspirational. So it's not going to be as valuable, let's say, as a utility company that's providing power to everyone's home, So like it's going to be more of a disruption if you don't have power than it is if you don't have a self-driving car. And so that's kind of how I think about this. Not to say that innovation isn't important. I'm just saying to simplify this model, that's kind of how I decided to map this out. And then you've got companies kind of in the middle serving on a gradient of this scale. So let's take this now and look at it in 2 dimensions, and we'll look at it from a tactical versus a strategic standpoint. And this is how I want you to kind of think about when you plan out your robotics career. We'll do a few examples here, and then you can kind of use this to figure out, okay, cool, how do I make the move? And you can use this kind of 2-dimensional economic slider to figure out, okay, well, these are my, again, going back to my criteria, these are my priorities, this is the trade-off. And then once I know that, okay, I need to optimize for market responsibilities and the environment within this slider example, okay? So let's do Starbucks here because a lot of people are familiar with that. Love a good coffee, love a good cold brew from Starbucks. So you've got kind of lots of different positions at Starbucks. Okay, you've got the actual store where you've got the barista making your drink. Well, they're going to be more tactical. So odds are they're going to be making less money, like the potential to be, a top tier earner as a barista at Starbucks is going to be less than, let's say, the person who is working in NPD, which is new product development, like designing, let's say, the chemistry of new drinks that they roll out to the menu, right? Because designing a new drink and the formula or the recipe for a new drink or the type of bean and where it's being sourced is going to be more strategic than actually pouring the drink, right? And so as you kind of move down this towards strategy, there are roles that start to kind of pop up. And when I was in engineering, I actually had no clue any of this existed until I was in the leadership program. And even when I was in the leadership program, I didn't really understand this until I was like drawing this out today. And I'm like, I had this epiphany of like, yes, this is how this works. So then you've got kind of managers, let's say like in supply chain or people in supply chain. Maybe you've got buyers or researchers and things like that. You've got folks, managers in operations. Like as you start to move towards manager leadership, you're going to start to get more strategic, right? Because those leaders are responsible for, going back to this definition, the vision and the milestones on how things should run. So by the time you get over to the tactics, your drink is poured in the exact way that it should be because everything was already figured out, right? It was already passed through the organization. And so this is why, like, let's say if you're in a leadership role or manager role or C-suite role or director at Starbucks, you're going to make way more money than, let's say, the person pouring the drink, right? So the closer you are to the actual product where you're actually doing the hands-on work, it tends to be lesser paying or not as high paying as somebody that is coming up with the idea or the vision to grow the company. So you've got kind of like the execution of the actual like building of the product. So like if you think about it, a barista, they are building the product. They are building the drink in front of you. So they're like a technician. They are executing the playbook. But if you're the person that creates the playbook, you come up with the idea and you're able to lead the organization to growth, then you're going to tend to have more opportunity to make more money. So that's why I kind of like, I like using this model, because you can start to see like, okay, in an actual tangible way, like where are you now in your organization? And I would encourage you to take a few minutes right now. You can even pause this video and start to think about the company that you're at and maybe some of these categories. And is the role more strategic or is it less strategic, more tactical? And then where are you on this two-dimensional timeline? And then where is the company as it relates to what you're offering your customer? Are you a food product like Starbucks? Or are you more aspirational like an innovative technology like self-driving vehicles? So let's take a look at the next example here. So we've got Tesla, and I wanted to do Tesla just because there are a lot of folks that I've worked with that are trying to get into Tesla, and that's one of their like dream jobs is to work at Tesla. And again, there's kind of a couple dimensions of Tesla where it fits kind of in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's kind of more of this psychological like exclusivity, prestige, owning a Tesla, like you're futuristic. So it kind of fits in the middle of this graph. And we've got some roles here. So we've got the actual technician building the vehicle, like they're on the shop floor in those plants actually overseeing or potentially actually torquing bolts and touching the assembly. So they're part of that assembly team. You've got the engineering team that's maybe less hands-on with the parts and they're more with design or software or electronics. Then you've got your engineering, your senior engineers who are overseeing the junior engineers. You've got engineering managers across different business units. You've got maybe director of product who's coming up with better user interfaces or customer feedback. Then you've got kind of your vice presidents, and then you've got your C-suite and board, kind of very similar, very holistic, very high level, 500,000 foot view of potentially what this could look like in Tesla. From Tesla, the technology company, not Tesla, the retail center. We'll talk about Tesla, the retail center in a minute. But you can see why like a technician at Tesla is probably not making as much as, let's say, the VP of product or whatever, the VP of finance. This side is going to generally skew higher in income opportunity, income potential, just based on, again, going back to our definition, the responsibilities that you have in that role, right? Because if you're a vice president of product, you've got all of these people to the left that you're responsible for, plus the ideas, getting the ideas out there and ensuring you're growing, hitting those KPIs. So that is inherently more valuable than somebody that is actually just assembling the product and they don't have really the leadership responsibilities or other things that they have to worry about in, let's say, a management position. Now, there's another side of this Tesla, which I was thinking about because we have one here in Fort Myers, is the actual Tesla dealer. So if you go into a dealership, this is a retail location, and you're going to see a very similar kind of breakdown of this. You've got, let's say, the technicians who are fixing your Tesla are probably going to be like the opportunity for earning potential is probably going to be less than, let's say, your vice president of sales or the general manager of this dealership. The general manager of the Tesla dealership is going to be over here. So you've got your GM of the dealer versus let's say, the technician who is fixing or repairing Teslas and doing like oil changes and preventative maintenance. So there's lots of kind of brackets on this, and once you get this model, that's why I wanted to go through a bunch of examples. You will see it. You will not be able to unsee it. Literally, I've gone through in my mind dozens and dozens of examples, and as I'm working with clients and mentorship, we're trying to really understand, okay, well, what kind of path are we putting you on so that you can play a game you can win, and at least you know what the game is, right? And going back to what I said, what are your trade-offs? Like, what do you care about? A lot of times people, they don't want to, like, you may not want to be the vice president of sales at a Tesla dealership. You may not care about that. You may want to just be, a senior engineer. And so then it just becomes, okay, well, where on the spectrum do you fall? Because, again, going back to my example with the brain surgeon, you can't expect to make more than the market-based wages, than the responsibilities that you have, because, again, the market dictates the price. So there is going to be a ceiling. You just need to know like what that ceiling is. And in my experience, this is quite literally the best model to understand that. So then the last example I want to leave you with is Airbnb. There are kind of two interesting sides to Airbnb. You could be a host, or you can actually be on the technology team and work at Airbnb HQ. So if you're on, let's just say holistically, you're on the technology team working at Airbnb HQ in California, I believe that's where they are, then you're going to probably be making more money. You're going to be more tied into the strategy than, let's say, you hosting your home on Airbnb, right? So hosts are going to be more tactical because technically the host is the product, right? Like they're renting out their spare bedroom or their vacation home or their current home to potential vacationers, right? And so again, the closer you are to the tactics, the less opportunity you have to make money, which is why hosts on Airbnb don't make as much money as the people who are actually building the Airbnb platform. So hopefully this kind of gives you some breakthrough moments here. I know this was a lot of interesting like equations and relationships and economics. I wanted to give you a follow-up to the first video on this that has a little bit more of the principles and the relationships and some real-world examples. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like this style of video, if you think this is helpful, any ideas about the model, any questions that you have. And if you're interested in working with me directly in my robotics mentorship program, there's a link in the description that you can click on. It's going to send you to a 12-minute bonus training where I walk through my entire process, and then if you think it's a good fit, you can submit your application, and I'll reach out to you and let you know the next steps. So that's all I have for this one. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you soon.